Guys, it's been a crazy week with lots of misinformation, misreporting, and misunderstandings over the complexities of the Boston bombing case. And every time a new fact emerges, it leaves me with more questions than answers. So to help me gain some insight, earlier I was joined by Sibel Edmonds, editor of Boiling Frogs Post and founder of National Security Whistleblowers Coalition. I first asked her if after a decade of civil liberties erosions, we should be surprised at all to the call to suspend the suspects' rights. And here's what she had to say.
No, not at all. We've been climbing up the ladders towards a police state. In fact, we have been operating within all the police state's characteristics. If you look at it from the illegal eavesdropping to the illegal detentions, to Guantanamo, to Patriot Act, to now CISPA. I mean, it's just been going upward, and it's been going upward relentlessly.
Let's talk about these suspects and how the FBI alleges they found them, which was through crowdsourced photos and then a video captured from a department store. What does it say about the surveillance state in general if it's not making us any safer and it can't prevent things like this from happening?
Right, but more than that, first of all, it shows the ineffectiveness. But by saying that, I don't want to validate all this contradicting, conflicting, and false information that's been pouring from the government and the U.S. mainstream media. So I have been trying to keep the two separate because that's exactly what the government wants, and that is for the Americans to concentrate on the fear factor and the terror. Instead, I have been looking through my website and through the articles and analysis we have been putting out there on the validity of information, period. And that is what we have been hearing, what we have been reading, what we have been watching, both the mainstream media and a lot of the quasi-alternative media in terms of the facts surrounding this latest incident in Boston.
Well, let's talk about what the facts are that they do allege that they have. The FBI alleges that they have a video showing the suspects dropping their backpack and slowly walking away. Yet we've been shielded from seeing the video that's supposedly the unequivocal link proving their guilt. I mean, why do you think this is?
Well, as I emphasized before, I keep emphasizing three words, and that is conflicting, contradicting, and also false information, because if you start putting all the information that is pouring in right now, you will see that. For example, later FBI came out and they said that, okay, they got this information from the foreign government. Now we know that foreign nation was Russia in mid to late 2011. Then we look at the information coming out from people who knew the suspects, and they are talking about 3 to 5 years period. So that doesn't add up in terms of FBI claiming that these people were placed on their radar once they got the tip, intelligence tip from the Russian government. So that is false. And if it is false, why is it false? You're also, I have been reading carefully, and I know she has some problem with language, but the suspect's mother is talking about this ongoing relationship for 3 to 5 years. And she's describing some of the conversations. For example, on one hand, the government people telling the brothers that they know that they are decent, they are good people, and then turning around and saying, but we are watching you and you can be dangerous. A lot of that sounds just like a classic intelligence community recruitment approach, which you would see. It's the same thing with the confession. You know how they get two suspects and they separate them and they go to one and they want one to basically testify against another. They say, well, you know, what you committed, we know you didn't mean bad. And on the other hand, you can be facing 30 years in jails. This is how they get people, suspects, to talk, and this is exercised by the police departments as well. So that itself is very, very interesting. And the other thing that nobody's talking about is whether the previous relationship between the so-called suspects and the government, U.S. government, Was it really the FBI? Because from what I'm gathering from the people I speak with, and these are retired veteran FBI analysts and agents, it is not within their MO, and it sounds more like the agency in question actually was the CIA, because CIA has been carrying out operations in that region, in Russia, Caucasus, also Central Asia, but Dagestan area and Chechnya.
And I want to get into that specifically, which is what you just wrote about on Boiling Frog's post. But I wanted to also talk about the reaction. And of course, what you're saying, you know, it is a lot of questions remain about this case. And I just hate to see so many people bloodlusty trying to demand that these people's rights are taken away. I mean, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? I mean, let's see the proof. We're the ones who sponsored this spectacle, this media spectacle and this military spectacle. Don't we have the right to see the evidence that they allege they have? But let's talk about the military shutdown of Boston. I mean, in the hunt for these two suspects, they shut down the city, told people not to leave their homes, employed thousands of police as well as paramilitary troops with armored tanks in the streets. And on top of that, Israeli police were shipped in to even help with the investigation. Sibel, was all of this merited to find one man?
Well, as we all know, your viewers, you yourself, we know that it didn't. This actually provided the opportunity, or self-created opportunity, for the government to test their martial law scenarios, which they have been, again, building towards. And this is what we have been doing as a government. Since 9/11, this is what exactly we have been doing. We have been putting in place everything to get to that state. And unfortunately, with the reaction we got from the majority in Boston, people readily complying, people gripped by fear factor saying, yes, come and search our house without any warrants, or lock down our city, or shut down our stores, it gets really scary saying that, well, I guess the government has already proved that the Americans and the country is ready for the next stage. And for me, that is the scariest aspect of the civil liberties and the freedoms that we used to have, and the states of those freedom, the state of those freedom today, and where the next stage is, which I believe it has already approached.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction of this, so complacent with this military-style crackdown and shutdown of a city, I mean, really shows the establishment so excited about justifying their militarization of local police forces over the last decade, perpetuating these wars for profit, saying, look, terrorism's a real threat, and this is, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's almost like practice for what's going to happen when a bigger real event, or I'm not saying that this isn't real, but what's going to happen when something bigger happens on our soil, and that's really something that we should be questioning. Let's move on to your article that you wrote. The interesting twist, of course, is that these two brothers are Chechen. Kind of doesn't fit into that whole narrative that we've been hearing, but as you just outlined, U.S. operations have been grooming terrorists for a while in that region. I mean, outline what the U.S. has been doing to foster this kind of extremism in Chechnya and why.
I can tell you from firsthand experience and information, because a lot of people, those people who know me, most of those people know that I have been gagged, and state secrets privilege has been invoked in my case multiple times. The biggest reason for the state secrets privilege had to do with the operations and investigations and documents that I became aware of that covered the time period 1996 till 2002. This is about February 2002, that dealt with U.S. Covert operations in that region, Central Asia and Caucasus, both U.S. CIA, but also with NATO and through proxy nations. And one of them our partner, NATO partner, Turkey. And this has been in effect since the fall of the Soviet Union. But we, the American government, through our military CIA operations, military operations, we have been creating, arming, training, directing various factions within the region, Central Asia and Caucasus, and that includes the area Chechnya and Dagestan. A lot of weapons that gets to be shipped to Turkey, it is shipped there with the intention, they call it false end user certificate. The recipient may appear as Turkey, but actually the weapons are smuggled and taken to the rebels in Chechnya, other Islamic factions within Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, in Tajikistan. And again, we have been doing this since mid-1990s. I know that the Russian government is fully aware of this. In fact, if you look at the news from Russia, even in Turkey, even some of the European countries, but we never get to see those here within the US mainstream media, talking about when the Russian operations capture or kill some of these radicals or the rebels or whatever you want to call it. Up until recently, our nation called them the freedom fighters, as we did with the Mujahideens in Afghanistan, with the Chechens and those rebels. They recover foreign passports, and some of these people are part of the military in Turkey. So this information has been out, but it has been consistent blackout on this information in the United States with the US mainstream media up until recently, and they are still there. There is a Chechen lobby group. It's called the American Chechens, American Friends, that was established by, if you look at the names of the people who own this lobby and operate this lobby, you're looking at James Woolsey, from the former CIA director. You are looking at people like Bruce Jackson, former military intelligence officer, and then later the president of U.S. Committee on NATO. You're looking at Frank Gaffney. You're looking at Richard Pearl, the infamous Richard Pearl. People like Michael Ledeen. You look at it, it's not even a nation, okay? This is part of Russia. This is Russian territory. And they established this, this large, flashy lobby group for Chechnya. I mean, people should stop and say, why the former director of the CIA and Ladin, what is this with Chechnya? Well, this is, again, part of what we have been doing, our government has been doing, and has intentions of doing even more in that region. And now, lo and behold, with the mainstream media, out of the blue, we start, the American public get to hear the words Chechnya and the Caucasus, and now the hot terror cells being there. It is just amazing to witness that unfold when we have known about this for nearly 20 years.
Seems like that's the trend, Sibel. And, you know, one government's terrorists is another government's freedom fighters when they know how to use them to their political advantage. Thank you so much for coming on, breaking down some of the rhetoric and just some of the background of this really complex issue. Sibel Edmonds, thanks so much.